Morning, everybody. Good morning. We are now live streaming on YouTube. So welcome to this meeting of the Landlord Services Advisory Board, an executive working group at Waverley Borough Council. My name is Paul Rivers, and I would normally be assisted by Terry Dobney, who's leader of the Waverley Tenants Panel, but unfortunately he has to leave at about 11 o'clock. So it's going to be very drafty up here for a while. So let's go to our agenda. Item 1 on the agenda, apologies. Marta, do we have any apologies?
Yes, we received apologies from officers, Officer Julian Hickson, Annalisa Howson, and Councillor Janet Crow.
Thank you. And we've not heard from Andrew Lawton this morning.
Yes.
No. Oh, he's on. Oh, I hadn't seen you.
Morning. Yes.
Morning, Andrew.
Chairman, I'm online today.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. It's very hard to see behind me. I haven't got eyes in the back of the head, but now I can see you here, which is good. All right, excellent. So item 2 on our agenda, notes of the previous meeting. Members, are you happy to agree the notes of the meeting of the 30th of January 2025? Thank you. And declarations of interest, item 3. Marta, have we had any declarations received before the meeting?
No, we haven't any declaration before the meeting.
Thank you. And anything from the meeting at all? Excellent. And Marta, have you received any questions from members of the public?
No, we haven't received any question from the public.
Thank you. And are there any questions from the members of the committee received in the normal way?
No, we haven't received.
I think my pen's just run out. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thanks very much. Excellent. So that moves us on then to the main parts of our meeting. Agenda item number 6, inspection findings presentation to be received verbally from Sharon Thompson. I tell you what I haven't done yet, which is occurring to me. My apologies. May we, you see, Terry, if you're not up here, if we can go around the meeting and introduce ourselves, I would appreciate it. Terry, please start.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Terry Daubney, and I'm Vice Chair of this committee.
Morning. My name's Dave Madams, Tenants Panel, representing Riverside Court.
I'm Rod Blackmore, Tenants Panel and Advisory Board Member and Chair of the Customer Experience Group.
Good morning, Rob Stratford, Member of the Landlord Services Board, Vice Chair and Treasurer of the Tenants Panel.
Good morning, my name is Sally Purcell. I'm a member of the LSAB and I also represent Shepherd's Court on the Tenants Panel.
Dennis Bramble from Shepherd's Court, and I'm here with Sally just as an observer.
Morning, Alan Morrison. I'm a councillor representing Cranley West Ward.
Good morning, I'm Jackie Keane and I'm a councillor representing Hazelmere West Ward.
Good morning, Councillor John Rabini. I'm Surrey, Waverley and Town for Shottermill and Hazelmere.
Good morning, Hugh Wagstaff, Head of Housing.
Good morning, Sharon Thompson, Service Improvement Manager.
Morning, Matt Alexander, Housing Operations Manager.
Thank you all very much for that. It's good to have you all here. So, second time then, Sharon, over to you for inspection findings presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. Can I just check everybody can see the screen okay, or do you need the lights to be switched? The lights.
That's all.
Is that better? Lovely, thank you. So in today's presentation, To begin with, I will just set some context in terms of the regulator of social housing, just as a reminder of when they came into force and the inspections, and give you a little bit of information of the process that's been undertaken to date at Waverley. And then I will move into the regulator's judgment for Waverley that was published yesterday. And I will talk more about the strengths and the weaknesses and the improvements that was highlighted by the regulator. So to begin with, in April last year, the regulator set out 4 new consumer standards. These were introduced to prevent tragic events like the Grenfell Tower fire and also Awab Aishak's death due to mould exposure. The 4 standards that they introduced were stock and quality, which looks at ensuring landlords provide safe and well-maintained homes and services. The second standard is the neighbourhood and community standard, and this is where landlords must work with other agencies and ensure tenants' lives are safe, live in safe and well-maintained neighbourhoods. There's also the tenancy standard, which states that landlords must fairly allocate homes and ensure that we manage the end of tenancies as well. And finally, we have the transparency, influence and accountability standard, which looks at ensuring that landlords are open and fair with tenants and allows them to raise concerns. And as we go through and look at the regulatory judgment for Waverley, I will set out the strengths and the weaknesses in terms of these 4 standards. So as I mentioned, the consumer standards came into force last April, and at the same time, the regulator of social housing started to undertake a planned programme of inspections of social landlords who have more than 1,000 homes. These are short notice inspections and they run on a 4-year cycle. Waverley's most recent inspection was a planned programme, was part of the planned programme of inspections. It focused on those 4 consumer standards that I just mentioned. And the process started, I think, in September, where they notified us of the inspection. And really, the work with the inspection kind of happened between October and December. The regulator reviewed a wide range of our documents. They also attended and observed key council meetings. They met with the tenants panel. They observed the Landlord Services Advisory Board and also the ONS committee meeting and exec. They also conducted 14 on-site interviews across 2 days, engaging with tenants and officers and councillors. So the regulator sets out their judgments in terms of gradings, and the gradings range between a C1 and a C4. And I thought it would just be helpful just to go through what those gradings actually mean. So a C1 is where the landlord is meeting the consumer standards, so the 4 standards that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. A C2 is where the landlord has some weaknesses and improvement is needed. A C3 is where the landlord has some serious failings and significant improvement is needed. And a C4 is where a landlord has very serious failings and fundamental changes are required. So in terms of Waverley, hopefully you will have all received the press release yesterday. The regulator of social housing published our judgment and graded us as a C2. What this means is that they identified we do not have any serious failings, but we do have some weaknesses and improvements are needed. At the time of the inspection, we presented ourselves in the best way possible at the time. The regulator did not find any weaknesses that we weren't already aware of. So the weaknesses and improvements that they state in their findings, Waverley was already aware of them and had improvement plans in place to ensure that we are addressing those weaknesses. So what I'll do now is I'll take you through some of the key findings in terms of the strengths across the 4 standards. And then I'll talk to you about the key findings in terms of the weaknesses improvements. And lastly, we'll talk about the next steps as to where we are now and moving forward and what we need to do. So in terms of the first standard, the safety and quality standard, the regulator felt that we have an accurate record of the conditions of our homes, and that we have appropriate systems in place to ensure the health and safety of our tenants. And they also mentioned that we do manage risks associated with damp and mould. In terms of the neighbourhood and community standard, they felt that we worked effectively with partners to deter and tackle antisocial behaviour and hate incidents. They highlighted in the tenancy standard that we offer tenancies that are compatible with the needs of individual households, the sustainability of the community, and that we use our stock effectively. In terms of the transparency, influence and accountability standard, they felt that Waverley provides opportunities for tenants to influence and scrutinise services, and that they found evidence that tenant feedback has positively impacted on service delivery. They found that we are committed to treating our tenants with fairness and respect, and that at the time of inspection, they noted an improved complaints handling performance, which I will come on to later. So in terms of the weaknesses and the improvements needed, I'll now talk you through those. And again, I'll talk you through these in terms of the consumer standards. So with regards to decent homes, the regulator noted that we have a number of homes which are failing to meet the decent home standard, and we have plans in place to address this, and we are continuing with our ongoing stock condition surveys. With regards to damp and mould, whilst they recognise that we were managing the damp and mould cases, they felt that we could be more proactive in terms of looking at the types of themes and trends, the geographical locations, to better inform things like our stock condition surveys and to better inform our works maintenance programmes. In terms of water safety, they found that they had concerns over the number of water risk assessments that were completed, and I'm pleased to say that we have improved on that now. But whilst we have improved the number of water risk assessments that we have completed, that has led to a number of remedial actions which we are now working through.
So water safety is about Legionella, about making sure the bacteria isn't within the water system. So the majority of their, well, huge amount of work is in the senior living schemes because of the high risk in terms of the shared water tanks. It's really where we've got shared water tanks. So we've got other homes that have got shared water tanks. And again, we have to do risk assessments for those homes. And from those risk assessments, work is identified, i.e. to remove the cold water tank if possible, i.e. to eliminate the hazard that's causing the risk. So it's really about Legionella.
Yeah, trying to identify Legionella or whatever before it happens.
Thank you. And then the regulator found that there were shortcomings in the provisions of an effective, efficient and timely repair service, noting that Waverley has not consistently met its published performance targets for non-emergency repairs, leading to delays, which in turn affects tenant satisfaction. In terms of adaptations around the identified issues around the efficiency and timeliness of providing the necessary aids and adaptations for tenants. In terms of the maintenance of empty homes, we have not been meeting the required standard, and this causes delays in reletting the properties and affecting housing availability. And in general, the overall tenant satisfaction with repairs has been below expectations, including dissatisfaction with the quality and timeliness of repairs. The regulator noted that we have engaged with key stakeholders and that our improvement plan is underway, and they would like to see the outcomes of those improvements as we move forward. In terms of the neighbourhood and community standard, the regulator felt that we could felt that we had improved reporting antisocial behaviour incidents to the board, and they felt that we could improve on reporting hate incidents, which we have started to do, and you have seen those in the performance dashboard. In terms of the tenancy standard, the regulator talked about the ongoing support that we provide to our tenants, and felt that the programme that we have in place at the moment is behind target, and we are working to recruit and ensure that that programme is kept up to date. In terms of the transparency, influence and accountability standard, the regulator felt that we could broaden the range of tenants that we engage with and ensure that this reflects the borough's demographics. They also noted that whilst we have tenant engagement in terms of our engaged tenants with our tenants panel and the Landlord Services Advisory Board, they did feel that we should be seeking feedback from non-engaged tenants. And we have plans in place to revise our tenant engagement strategy where we will address this. The regulator also noted that we do hold some diversity information about our tenants, but this could be much improved to ensure that we continue to treat our tenants fairly and that we ensure that services meet everybody's needs. And lastly, in terms of complaints, whilst they recognise that we had an improved complaints handling performance, at the time of inspection, we had improved this in October. Obviously, the inspection happened between October and December, and they would like to see this performance embedded into the work that we do, and they will continue to work with us to gain assurances that the learning from complaints leads to improved outcomes for our tenants. So those were the strengths and the weaknesses and the improvements that the regulator highlighted in the regulatory judgment published yesterday. In terms of the next steps, we need to ensure that we provide ongoing assurance and evidence at all times the work that we are doing. And I've set out here some of the steps that we are aware of, that we shared with the regulator, and that we are working towards. So we have a number of improvement plans in place for all of the weaknesses that the regulator had noted. And what we will be doing is pulling all of those improvement plans together to produce a landlord services improvement plan, which can then be monitored and brought to the board in terms of updates and progress. And this is something that we will also share with the regulator. Alongside that, we are aware that we need to embed a performance culture. We need to ensure that this performance also goes hand in hand with the landlord services improvement plan, and we have started to do some work. You will recall that we had a meeting last month in terms of the performance information that we bring to this board and the overview and scrutiny committee. There are other things that we need to be doing, not to say that we aren't doing them at the moment, but looking at our data and our systems, ensuring that we have the necessary skills within the department. I mentioned our tenant involvement strategy that we are working on. And we are doing all of these things in terms of those being a pathway to achieve a C1 grading. So whilst we are C2, we need to ensure that we continue with our improvements, ensure that those improvements lead to outcomes for our tenants, and therefore moving towards a C1 where we are meeting the consumer standards set out by the regulator. In terms of our involvement with the regulator, we welcome the ongoing engagement that we will be having with the regulator. They will be looking to monitor our progress so that as I said, so that the outcomes are improved for tenants. And at the moment, this is likely to be on a monthly basis. And as we move forward, we would hope that may move to a quarterly position. Those meetings have not started as yet. As I said, the judgment was published yesterday, and we will be having ongoing conversations with the regulator. I'm happy to take any questions.
Sharon, thank you very much for that. Before you start, John and Jackie, don't let me forget, by the way. That's good. Let me say from the chair, firstly, I think this is a good report. Given the fact that it's the first time that we have come face to face with the people who set the standards. So it's our first opportunity, the housing teams, by the way, big clap, all right? The first opportunity for us to understand what they mean by these standards and how they expect us to perform to these standards and demonstrate that we are performing to them. So to get a C2 at this particular position is absolutely terrific because it shows us the way forward in the light of the standards. So I think the housing teams need a big applause from us all for the efforts that you. By the way, you were still doing the work as well, right? Terrific. So as Julian said yesterday, enjoy yesterday back to the training ground today. I think that was a bit harsh, actually. I'd have given you a whole week, I think. But and also Landlord Services Advisory Board, thank you for your input on this to the investigators. Sounds very formal, doesn't it? And Terry, big thanks to the tenants panel for all of their efforts. And I'm just so pleased that we've got here. And I know we've got a journey to go on, but that's much more fun than trying to stay on our laurels. So, John and Jackie. John.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'll reiterate exactly what you said, and thanks to all the housing team for the work they do. I know when myself and Jackie phone up with problems, they're very eager to try and please us and get things moving forward. So I appreciate the work they're doing. What I would like to ask is to try, well, there's two questions. The first one is to try and put it into context, i.e. we've got a C2, but surrounding local authorities and or social landlords, I mean, where are we with them? Are we higher than them? Are we the same? Are we about the right position?
Thank you. Yes, so I do have some figures that I managed to pull off yesterday in terms of the number of inspections that the regulator has undertaken to date. So they've undertaken 68 inspections since April. 35 of those were with local authorities and 33 were registered providers. In terms of kind of where we sit, I'll go through the numbers and the gradings. So the regulator has issued 14 C1 gradings, of which 3 are local authorities and 11 are registered providers. In terms of the C2, they have issued 29 gradings, of which 11 are local authorities, one of which we are, and 18 are registered providers. In terms for C3, the regulator has issued 23 gradings, and of which 19 are local authorities and 4 are registered providers. And then in terms of a C4, there are 2 gradings that have been issued, and both for local authorities.
Yeah, thanks. So we're sitting very well in, I won't call it a league, but we are certainly sitting very well in comparison with others. So my second question is, if we're going to achieve a C1, which is obviously what we want to do, have you got any sort of cost implication, how much that might be? Have we got the funding to do it? Because obviously at the moment there's financial stresses. It's going to be difficult for the budget team to actually set the funds out.
I mean, I think that there is adequate budget as what we know. I mean, one of the big spends is, we've talked about it here, is the IT, and within the business plan there is money put aside for the new IT system, which will help us to be that C1. Staffing, as I said, we need a skills analysis and perhaps a gap analysis when and there may be some more staff are needed, but we have had some growth for the last couple of years, so that seems to be fine. So I think, and we have to keep looking at this point. I think the resources are there in the business plan for this to improve the services. I don't think that's the critical thing. I think the thing is the skills, getting the skills in, keeping the skill, and then keeping the skills within the organisation as well. I think that's the critical thing. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I agree with you with the skills, because we all know recruiting at the moment is difficult because we're in a competition and local authorities nearby want the same skills as we do. And yet, unfortunately, Waverley is an expensive place to live, and we can't pay enough to actually compete with some of the other local authorities. So I appreciate what you're saying. I'm just trying to get a picture of whether we're likely to achieve C1 under the funding we've got at the moment, because we all know the next 2-3 years, then things are going to change dramatically anyway.
I mean, there are risks, but I don't think we probably could do a risk map. I don't think that would be the highest risk. The lack of funding, I think, is the skills, the IT systems. As I say, we've got funding there in the business plan for that. But as I say, we don't know what's coming in the future. But at the moment, I think that's probably relatively a lower risk than some of the others. I know Sham's got.
Yes.
Thanks, you. Hang on. Sorry. Oh, Sharon, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to add that in terms of the Landlord Services Improvement Plan, whilst I say we're going to bring a plan together, that plan is bringing together the work that we're already doing. We already have those improvement plans. We have already budgeted for the majority of those things. So that's why I would agree with you that the risk in terms of the budget is low. But as we move forward and as we continue to do these and continue to make our improvements, what we need to be doing is ensuring that those lead to the outcomes for our tenants. And if they're not leading to the outcomes for our tenants, then we have to think about what do we do next. And that's when I think perhaps if that happens, then we need to look at changing things, and that may have budget implications. But as it stands, we are working towards the improvements, and I don't see that as a high risk.
Just to say, Andrew, that I have seen your hand. And Jackie next, but if I may just throw in some questions. Presumably we will not be regraded until we are next inspected. And is that next inspection under our control or under the regulator's control?
So it's my understanding that the inspections happen on a 4-yearly cycle. So I would expect that we would be inspected again in 4 years, and that would be down to the regulator to tell us when that will happen. But, you know, I do want to just say that we do have this ongoing engagement with the regulator, and so we need to be ensuring that we are working towards our improvements and to achieve a C1.
Yeah, but would we get feedback from the regulator to say you're doing pretty well now, and we think you're well on track to be a C1, or would they not give us that information? And I haven't forgotten you, Jackie, or you, Andrew.
I think, as you said at the beginning, it's a new process. So to some extent, we don't know. That's what we assume, because they actually haven't written anything too much about the process after the inspection. But that's what we would hope, is that we would be able to evidence that we are a C1. They might not formally say we're a C1, but say, actually, you're reaching the right standards. So yes, we would expect from those meetings feedback, and that we're definitely on the right track. But as I say, it's a totally new process, and we've just got to see how it goes.
Thanks, you, Jackie, and then Andrew.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I think you deserve a huge pat on the back, because I think our housing department has done fantastically well. I mean, you know, yes, it's a C2, but you've already got so much in place to improve on that. And if it is going to be a 4-year next inspection, well, I think we'll probably be at C1 anyway, because you know where we're going, you know what you've got to do. And I think the tenants panel have been really good in probably helping with that C1, to be honest with you, as well, because, you know, anything they're giving back is great. The one thing that interests me, Sharon, is the tenant involvement strategy. And I do understand that, you know, the tenants panel do a fantastic job, but there are so many other tenants out there that really, they don't understand what the tenants panel do and how helpful they can be. And they equally don't understand how the housing department works and what have you. You know, they do when they want to find out what can be done for them, but not until then. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how you're going to engage other tenants to come on board with us and work with us, because I think that's something that is going to be possibly hugely influential with the inspectors as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to do on that. But well done.
Thanks, Jackie. Andrew, if I can pass over to you, and then I'll ask Terry to pick up on some of Jackie's points.
Hi, good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Jackie. You've stolen a bit of my thunder, actually, and I agree with a lot of your comments. I also congratulate the housing team for a great job. However, I still do need some more reassurance that the information that we're looking at is a true representation of all our social housing tenants. And as such, you specifically made a comment that you seek feedback for non-engaged tenants, as Jackie has highlighted. And I think that's really important for us to be able to comfortably be satisfied that this information really does truly represent all of our tenants, not just the ones we have reported. So following Jackie's comments, please, Sharon, if you can give me some more feedback on your plans for what you're going to do for engagement for non-engaged tenants at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawton. So yes, it is very much so that we need to look at the menu of opportunities, should I say, that we need to have in place for non-engaged tenants. So, you know, we totally understand that, you know, not everybody is able to come to a monthly meeting, not everybody is able to even get into Godalming. We need to be able to provide opportunities that could be one-off opportunities and opportunities where people feel that it's relatively easy to engage with us and look at different ways of doing that. So a key focus of the tenant engagement strategy is going to be, yes, our formal structures. So yes, we have our tenants panel and the Landlord Services Advisory Board, and these work really well, and we will continue to engage in this way. But the other key focus of the tenant engagement strategy will be around that menu of opportunities for non-engagements to be involved.
Okay, Andrew. Right, Terry.
Thank you. I'll just address really the tenant engagement part of it. Really, it's extremely difficult to get tenants to become engaged, and we've got up to 12 members, and when we got to 12, one said, well, they've got a few more. I'm going to leave now. I'm going to go and do something else. And we've got to try and keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get people on that. And when you look at some of the housing associations where they have 100 members in their tenant panels or tenant groups, and you know, we've got 4,800 properties, and we struggle to get into double figures with a tenant group. So we've got to look at many other ways of engaging with tenants and bringing them along. And I felt right at the beginning, when they started to talk about the regulator and tenant engagement, it would have been nice to know how do they believe we can engage with tenants, to give some sort of guideline there. But we do recognise today the achievement that the officers and Waverley have by obtaining a C2 rating. We know there's been a lot of work done in the last few months to get that, and we were part of that. And we look forward to working with and supporting the officers to address all those weaknesses that we now find and we're working with. I suppose it's a job well done, but the job's not finished. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Jackie?
Yes, just coming back to that. I mean, I do know that the housing team have had coffee sessions and goodness knows what else with tenants to try and engage them. And it is hard because if a tenant's happy and with their life, they're not interested in being engaged. But it may be, you know, that as a counsellor, very often the only time I will see a tenant is when they're unhappy. And so, you know, you go along and do what you can. And the housing team are fantastic in helping counsellors with any problems. And I'm thankful for that. But it may just be that, you know, the counsellors in the areas could help the tenants panel in some way, you know, to get people to come along to these meetings. You know, we've got the housing estates, for instance, where it might be that actually setting up a meeting at that particular site, rather than dragging them out, if you had a site where you could meet them, meet your officer and counsellor or whatever, on a Saturday morning or something. You know, it's just another way of engaging with them, maybe, to get them to know what we do, what you do, more importantly, and get them involved. And it's just a thought. I'd be more than happy to help the housing officers on a Saturday morning or whenever to go along, because I know the tenants. So the offer's there.
Thanks, Jackie. Alan, yes, please go ahead.
It's just a very quick question. I noticed the regulators mentioned about damp and mold. Now, looking at the last lot of figures, it didn't seem like we had a huge problem. It was around about sort of 40, I think it was. But just how bad is the problem? Is this sort of minor mold, or is it some of it quite substantial? Do you see it as being a sort of a relatively minor issue that can be easily addressed over the next sort of year or two, or is it a bit more substantial than that?
Do you just want to answer that?
Sorry, please, can you just repeat the question, Darren?
Yeah, it's just the regulator had mentioned that we have a damp and mold problem, but the figures that we saw last time we met, I think, was around about 40, and it's just really trying to establish: is it are these sort of really minor issues, or are some of the damp mold issues quite substantial, and is it something we can get under control very quickly?
So it can be both.
Matt, before you get into this, I wonder if we could pick this up through Hugh's State of the Nation report. Could we? Are you happy with that, Alan? And then we can move on to that. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Otherwise, Marta will be telling me I'm overshooting my time. So.
I mean, I'd just like to conclude that item, just say thank you very much for all the support everyone's shown today, and Terry particularly saying the support going forward. and we do need to get to C1. We do need this board's total support in that. And I'm not necessarily always positive, but the challenging is really important, and to encourage residents and tenants to come to this meeting as well. So, but thank you very much. And we totally recognise there's an awful lot of hard work in the journey going forward. In terms of my report, so I've just given a quick update on where we are with the responsive repairs contract with our client action plan. We sort of highlighted 3 areas where we're not on target, where the others actions we are in line with what the target was set. The first one is actually see an updated improvement plan from Ian Williams. We should be receiving that this week, they've said. The overdue roofing jobs is still an issue, but there is a small improvement, and Matt is on a weekly basis monitoring how we're progressing. And then the subcontractors IT, we're getting an update in March from them on that. The second thing I just wanted to report back is Councillor Lawton sort of had a suggestion for me to go and talk to other clients of Ian Williams to see what they were doing. So I've given a brief report back on that. I managed to talk to 2. One was a larger organisation, housing association. I didn't really learn too much from them, and they were sort of quite laid back. So I thought, well, let me look at their tenant satisfaction, TSMs measures, and actually they're a lot lower than ours. So they're sort of they shouldn't have been laid back because their performance doesn't seem to be great. What was interesting was a second organisation, an organisation the same size as us in the northeast of England, and it was just amazing. Their experience totally reflected ours. You know, Ian Williams came in and then suddenly got distracted by another contract within the area. So they left them without resources, and literally it was around the same time they've had 2-3 years of constantly doing contract management, getting them back on board. What's really, they have had an improvement, but what's that improvement has been is they said was that they've had now a consistent manager who's very good at the local level. And that's something that we've not, well, Ian Williams have not achieved. We've had a constant churn of people sort of digging up all the old stuff and not really moving forward. So, Jackie?
Sorry, to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, but doesn't that, I think, go back to what I was saying a few meetings ago, that Ian Williams have overstretched themselves and that they just flip from one contract to another when there's complaints. And I think by what you're saying here, this is exactly what's happening, that they're trying to satisfy everybody but satisfy no one. So
I think that's a very good summary. So I think the lessons learned is we've got to, from this, the second client, is that we've just got to keep doing, and Matt and the team have got to continue doing what they're doing, just constantly challenging them, trying to put things right. As I say, I've been playing a role in that, sending them letters as well, meeting with them as their directors, etc. We have a little bit more when we look at the performance report, how Ian Williams are doing. The next, just want to mention the key-to-key void process. We had quite a big report at the last meeting. Matt's now leading the project and developing the action plan, which will be coming to the next meeting. But Matt held a workshop and to clarify the action plan. We've also mentioned that we had a meeting, many of us attended, on performance reporting framework, and I thought it was a very good meeting and informative. And Sharon is currently working on bringing all that information together, and that will be reported in the April meeting, Landlord Services Board, with the actual figures of the performance figures. And then lastly, I just gave an update where we are on the local government reorganisation plans, just to keep people abreast. Then I don't know if there are any questions on that.
I've got Andrew.
Okay.
You want to take him? Andrew?
Yes, thank you very much, Hugh, for the update. There was one question which I'm still sort of waiting for an answer, actually, and maybe, Mr. Chairman, you'll be able to shed some light on it. I have asked about what happens, what plans are in action now in terms of what happens by, I think 2027 is the time when the current contract is being reviewed. Is there any information that I can have about this? Because I think as I understood, it's agreed that the new contract needs to be redefined to ensure that we're able to have a tighter grip on the Ian Williams or his successor. Thank you.
So the plan is to get a consultant to come in to do an options appraisal of where we go, which would be consulting everybody. Matt has actually drawn up the specification, but that's now been passed to the procurement team. So there's been delays with the procurement team actually getting. We've advertised.
It's back. It's been returned. We just haven't awarded yet. There's some complications with procurement to award it.
So we are due to award for a consultant to start working with us on those options appraisal. Does that answer the question?
So Andrew, Hugh and I have talked about this obviously for some time, and it does seem that we need some external advice and intelligence, if you like, to help us as we move towards, in the longer term, the procurement of a new contract. So as long as procurement helps us out in the shorter term, I think the housing team is well aware of this, and the feedback from that and our involvement in that will be a key thing. Thank you.
Are we saying that because of the reorganisation and the budgets, the consultant that you're looking to recruit you're waiting for a budget to confirm that, or you actually actively started to look? I suppose my question is, when do you hope that the consultant may be in place, or is that a difficult question to answer at this stage?
I mean, we can't say it should be in place now. It's just some technical difficulties with our colleagues in procurement who are based in Guildford. So all the work's been, so it's just getting it over the line. Perhaps if Paul could send me an inquiry about this, and hopefully that might be able to push someone to get a decision to us. Because
it's in the post, okay?
Matt's done all the work, and we're just waiting for confirmation that they can be appointed and get on with the project.
Great. So you've actually got somebody ready to go.
Basically, yes.
Oh, great. That's good news. Thank you.
So I just wanted to pick up also actions from the last minutes. There was a number of actions about informing tenants about minor repairs, etc. So we've got that in a plan to do. Matt's the second issue was about tenants not being in when the contractor attends. So Matt's doing some work on that with Ian Williams. And we talked about safeguard training for the contractor. Again, the Ian Williams have met with our safeguarding officer and has agreed a training package, and the Ian Williams are rolling it out with their operatives. I think that was all the actions that were outstanding from the last meeting. Terry, did you have anything else from the minutes? No. Okay, so I will now move on to performance. So This is the dashboard. I say this is still the old dashboard. And we know that it's got some shortcomings. First thing we just need to look at is voids. We're not sure that what we're seeing is a trend, but they did come down in January, the average number of days to re-let. And as I mentioned before, Matt is leading the project to improve the void performance. And he's at the moment looking at the quick wins. So hopefully we will see that continue to come down, at least to be below the 40s levels going forward. Any questions on voids?
Chairman, yes, Hugh, I just on a question on how many people we've actually got on the list now. I know we're talking about voids, but you know, I suppose it goes hand in hand really, how quickly we can turn it around and how many we've got waiting.
On the housing register, so I haven't got the precise figure, but I think it's around 900. But we can
Still quite high then.
Yeah, it's definitely around that mark.
Yeah, thank you.
I think there was a bit of a drop because there was a big scheme that we were able to rehouse a number of people, but it's around that mark. Complaints that we've briefly discussed, and there is a complaints report, but it's just to say that we're still getting that high level of complaints, which is not necessarily bad in terms of people have got the confidence to complain. But it does mean there are issues with the service, and as we can see from here, it is the housing maintenance and repair service that is the difficulty. So I think that number needs to come down in terms of the contractor improving their performance. I think when I met with Terry before the meeting, he just wanted to highlight about complaints being upheld and not upheld. And when that discussion came to light, that really we haven't got a definition of what we mean by upheld and not being upheld. And he felt that was quite important. So we're going to do some work in terms of clarifying what that means. So I suppose you as a board really understand why things are not being upheld. But I think 28 complaints being upheld does really demonstrate that there are clearly some issues that people complain about and we need to respond to. The number of level 2s continue to be higher than previous years, but we're still meeting the turnaround target there. We've got a complaints report, so we won't pick up complaints later on. Housing Ombudsman, we've had 3 reports from the Housing Ombudsman. Responsive repairs. So you do the day-to-day responsive repairs. At the end of January, they were holding 612 jobs. 106 of those were overdue, 17%. We'll see in a second it's slightly coming down. The real area that's of concern is what they call the minor works. Works that need more than one trade, a bit more complicated. And again, Matt's meeting with them weekly on this. I think, not to put words in his mouth, but I think he's got still got concerns they're not really grasping this area of the work. And this is probably the most frustrating work. And this is the type of works resolving can be complex, especially probably damp and mold, where they need to fit extractor fans, etc., is where they're finding it, and other trades need to come in. They're finding it difficult. But I say Matt continues to work on that in that area. So here, the next slide is the flight path, so to speak. To the top line is the number of jobs that they were holding in that particular week. We have the target to reduce them, the overdue jobs is the orange, and then the green is how they're doing. So they've basically reached the target at the end of January, or they're on target from this graph, but they've still got some way to get to, and whether that, and then, but also we're looking to an improved target going forward. We mentioned the second improvement plan to actually get a lower number that are a lower percentage that are overdue. Don't know if anyone's got questions about responsive repairs or the repairs contract.
I think you can carry on, Hugh.
Yeah. Here's the performance information. Generally, won't go into detail here. Just wanted to highlight is the post inspections. I think we felt that they've been key, that Ian Williams carry out these post inspections and they do them correctly. So they're now saying they're doing 11, they've done 11% in January. We're still, we know that they're doing them, but we haven't got all the data to confirm that we're totally satisfied that they're doing real post inspections. But what's the key thing here is they're finding only 77% of the jobs that they post inspect are passing themselves. So at least there's a little bit of honesty from them, but it does, and I think Matt is saying that they now beginning to realise that quality is not good out there, and I think if them as an organisation really take hold of those figures, they will know they need to really now. It's not our figures, it's not us moaning and all of that kind of thing. Their own figures are showing the quality is poor. Councillor.
Yes, I really can confirm that some of the tenants that come and speak to me about their repairs are saying that some of them are quite poor, and they've ended up having to repair it themselves sometimes because they're so disappointed. So I think that does bear it out a little bit, Hugh.
Sorry, we're still getting legal disrepair cases coming in.
Hugh, do you want, just to, for my sake, remind us what legal disrepair is?
Basically, that's where a tenant reverts to a legal case. So probably engages a solicitor who puts notice onto us that if we don't do the repairs, they will take us to court and they will get compensation, and there'd be an order against us to do the repairs. So we're not following what our legal obligations are. And I say that one of the key risks in this is the legal cost of the tenants, which we have to cover, which sometimes totally outweighs the repairs costs and the compensation to the tenant. So there is, and this meeting has highlighted before, that this is a cost that we need to start to actually be a bit more transparent about to the board.
Sorry, just want to ask a question on that. If somebody takes takes the legal route about the repairs, and does Williams not have to pay a certain amount to that, surely, if they haven't done the repairs and we've asked them to, and it's taken them that long? Should we not be asking them for recompense on that?
Yes, so because we also pay out compensation for complaints as well, and the Ombudsman directs us to make compensation. So again, Matt's doing work with Ian Williams and claiming back money. So we have got relatively a substantial amount of money we're claiming, and again they seem to be accepting that they need to pay the compensation. So of course Matt's getting some pushback, but I don't. It's not a total no pushback. So again, hopefully that's triggering to their senior management as an issue if they are having to pay out, because I don't think they like it, of course, they are paying out compensation. So I think the money is probably relatively small in terms of the whole of the contract, but at least starts to highlight to their senior management there's issues at Waverley. So there's the data for compliance, the health and safety. I think the only thing we really need to highlight to the board is the smoke alarm data. We're moving that data over to the new asset management system, and we just need to do some work around validating the data before actually making the information in a public arena. But work is being done on that. Sorry, Jackie.
So sorry to come back, Chairman. Interestingly, I don't know whether this is something to do with Waverley or not, but You know, the fire brigade have visited 2 of our properties and checking on their smoke alarms and that. And I didn't know whether that was because you hadn't been able to get into the property and the fire brigade had been asked or whatever, but they spent about 2 hours in these 2 properties. And I was quite intrigued to know, because I thought somebody had a fire. And they said, no, they're checking the smoke alarms and fire alarms in council properties. So I thought maybe you'd like to know that, because...
So I'm aware that they visit the senior living schemes and do checks and also talk to residents. They also visit other accommodation where we have shared facilities, Chapel Court particularly. But in terms of individual homes, I think it may be the tenant themselves or some other agency asked them to come. I've not heard them going to individual homes, to tell you the truth, but okay, I've not heard of that.
Well, thanks for that feedback, Jackie. Hugh?
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, can I just ask a question?
Okay. Yes. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, going back to the smoke alarms thing, I noticed, Hugh, you're obviously still waiting for the latest figures, but what really worried me is that you told me in October there were 491 non-compliant assets. You told me exactly the same number in December, there were 491 non-compliant assets, and now we don't know. Well, maybe you do know, but I'm just very worried that the number didn't move since October, allegedly, but I'm sure you'll tell me it has. But I think it's really important that we can see a number very, very quickly on that, especially if the fire brigade is starting to interrogate more houses as well.
Chair, I can confirm that it is a priority to actually confirm what the exact number is. And it doesn't give any particular reassurance, but the issue is about whether some smoke alarms are out of date as well, as not if they're there within people's homes. So that's the challenge around the data, but I can't argue with what Councillor Lawton has said.
I think, Andrew, I think it's clear that there is a degree of focus on this over the last couple of weeks. Hugh and I have had some discussions about that. So let's hope the number goes down.
Absolutely. I think that obviously I manage some properties myself, and checking the date of the expiry date of the smoke alarm is the key criteria. So we need to make sure that's done in place, obviously. Thank you.
Just quickly going through this, I haven't got anything to really highlight. Any other particular? Any other particular items? Well, I'm just conscious we haven't mentioned damp and mould. Just Councillor Morrison's question about the different kind of damp and mould. I think what Matt was going to say is we do have a range of cases, and when for the tenant, any mould is not good. But I've not seen in recent months any properties that have hugely great a lot of mould, unless, although today I saw one today where it's linked with other issues around the property, around hoarding, etc. And I think that's when it really gets complicated. So,
Sorry, what was the number of damp and mold in January? It was 40 in December. I didn't see the figure for January you just showed. I think I didn't see it, but I can't see it on the sheet.
Oh yeah, here we are, 43.
43.
Yeah, so it's the compliance. Sorry, I did skip over that page. So we're at 43.
Thank you.
Sorry, interrupting you. Because that, I mean, obviously that's gone up in January. It's gone up in 27 in November. Then we get to the really cold area. I mean, could that be maybe because also people don't want to open their windows in that? Maybe that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from
we
my
recognise
point of
it's very
view,
much
sorry,
seasonal.
you're just butting in. From my point of view, it is to be expected that people will not want to have cold rushing in to maintain the damp when the cost of heating their homes and maintaining the homes is so high. This is a systemic problem, and until we replace all of our houses with the ones like what we are building now, Gav, it is going to be a challenge. It is down to tenants to do some things, and obviously we can advise, but at the end of the day, we have some challenges in that area. John?
Yeah, moving on to antisocial behaviour, you've got cases involving hate incidents, and I seem to remember that we were pulled up on that on the report, and yet they seem to be very low. So have we got a problem with the reporting of it? I think January 25 you've got 1, December 24 2. So it's not high. Is this something they pulled us up on because of the lack of our engagement, or what?
I think they pulled it up that we weren't reporting on it. But I think, to tell the truth, is I'm not sure if that we've encouraged people to report it. I think that's the other piece of work that we need to do. So now we're reporting it. Now you're asking questions like this. Oh, it seems quite low. So we need to go away and come back and say, is this low? Do we need to do more to again encourage people to report it? And perhaps even to sort of do some, ask the police whether they would expect we should have higher figures. So I think we need to take back your comment that you feel it's low, and we need to see whether we need to do some extra work to encourage people to report it. But because we didn't report it, I think it was a main item that was raised by the regulator. It's exactly to give you the chance to make that observation.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think a close liaison with the police might help to shed some light on it through our sort of neighbourhood schemes.
Alan had some questions about damp and mould that I put him off and told you a bit, and you just mentioned it. Alan, have you had? Do you want to restate the question?
It's really just, have we got any real severe cases? I think what you've just sort of said is it varies a bit, and obviously as we just sort of discussed, it goes up during the winter time. And I know we were also putting in a different form of extractor in some of the rooms, which I think was going to help tremendously. But it's just, you see things on the TV with housing associations when the BBC go in and sort of say, and they show these huge, basically a house full of mould. And it's just to make sure we don't have anything like that. Ours is much smaller and easier to manage.
Yes, from what the information we're receiving, that is so. I mean, I'm just thinking we need to kind of, it's quite hard to answer your question without some kind of data and to sort of give you that context, what we're talking about. And we may need to sort of think about that, even if it's just a subjective that the damp mould officer classes them as either severe, not severe, minor. So give viewers aboard the context or of what we're reporting, really. I think that's what you're just saying. When you see 43 cases, is that just a touch of mould around the frames, or is it every case has got rooms full of mould? And I think we need to try and come back so we can give a clearer picture, because I think we've mumbled our way through the response. So sorry about that, but I think it's because we haven't got that data there.
No, I think that would be really helpful if we could get that going forward. That'd be great.
Thank you. And thinking about the next item, maybe that's something that we could put on a quarterly basis together, an update report from our damp and mould inspector. But that's the next item. Sorry, that's me jumping ahead. Please carry on.
So I finished, unless there's any other questions?
Okay, Jackie.
Yeah, I'd comment on the number of right to buys, which was only 2, which seems to have gone down, I think, since there was a reduction in what people could claim back.
I don't think that figure you can relate that to the change in the discount, which was a substantial reduction, because we've still got a number of claims in the pipeline that will be coming through. So I'd in fact, if they all go through, expect a spike. The number of applications has reduced since the reduction in the discount, but going forward, I think there might be an initial spike at the beginning of next year while if they've managed to get a mortgage, etc. But we need to see. But I think we will see the trend probably after around 6 months' time where we're going.
Oh, well done, Andrew. Let me just mention, by the way, about right to buy properties. We are budgeting for less this year, 10, I think. So that's reduction in income, but it's the right direction as far as I'm concerned. Andrew?
Thank you. Hugh, I just want to go back to the beginning of your this section. We're talking about level 1 complaints. They went up from, because I've got the December figure, housing maintenance and repair, there were 5 closed on time, and now there are 25 closed on time. So that's a significant improvement. And is that purely just because you're on top of Ian Williams? And if it is, great. That's a good figure to see. Because we only look at it in isolation, these first sections, and I think, Sharon, you're going to change this so we can see year to date. These are some of the good things which I think we can highlight. So going from 5 in December to 25 in January was a great result.
Yeah, thank you for that, Andrew.
So I think that leads us next to the next
move on to you,
item.
Sharon. Is it your turn now to deliver the complaints report? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So we bring this report to you to highlight the performance. I know Hugh has already touched on the performance, but I'll just quickly go through performance trends, lessons learned, and then just highlight the 3 maladministration notices that we received. So in terms of the performance, as you can see that there are a high level number of complaints being reported. We welcome complaints. And I'm pleased to say that we continue to respond to these within target. All complaints for level 1 and level 2 were completed within our target timescales of 10 working days for level 1. In terms of last year, it's interesting to note about how many complaints we're now receiving. At this time last year, there were 13 level 1 complaints closed and 6 level 2 complaints. So there has been a significant jump. And as we've highlighted, the number of those repairs at level 1 and level 2 are around housing maintenance. I'll quickly touch upon the trends, but we have Hugh has sort of mentioned those in his head of housing report, but the trends are along the lines of the quality of the repairs and also around communication, and we are aware of these things and we are working towards improving them. We have seen a slight increase in the number of home ownership complaints, and this is in response to the change in the right to buy legislation. Again, in terms of the lessons learned, we have them in front of you. Really what I want to say about this is that where we can, we ask Ian Williams to conduct toolbox talks with their operatives to ensure that some of these lessons learned are addressed, and we continue to monitor those going forward. We have the management of the subcontractors again, but we have spoken about that, and that is in our improvement plan with regards to repairs. We also held some refresher training on antisocial behaviour in the middle of January for our housing management staff to address some of the complaints that we've been receiving around antisocial behaviour. In terms of the maladministration notices, so to date we've received 3 notices, and we've provided you with a summary of each of those 3 complaints, and we'd be very happy to provide further information on any of these should you wish to have further information. I would ask the board to note this report, and I would also ask that this was due to be a monthly report to the board. What I'm asking is if we can move, we will continue to report on our complaints performance on a monthly basis through the dashboard. But what I would like to suggest is that we bring this particular report to you around the trends and the lessons learned on a quarterly basis, which will allow us to do better trend analysis, because we'll be looking at more complaints over a 3-monthly period, and we'll be able to pull out better trends and lessons learned, and in terms of then, you know, what improvements we put forward, we make going forward. So it's just a suggestion for the board. If I think it would be better quality information to bring to you on a quarterly basis, but as I say, to continue bringing the performance information on a monthly basis. Happy to take any questions.
Well, thanks, Sharon. Just picking up that point, in the next and last item, the forward planning thing, we have a complaints report in there on a monthly basis, but you want to replace that with a quarterly one. So we'll take that as an agreed thing. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. And also, we'd look to have a damp and mold quarterly review in the same vein to appear at some stage in that going forward. Questions for Sharon? John?
Yeah, the one I find awkward is the ASB one, where it talks about maladministration in ASB handling and policy compliance. I mean, obviously we're trying to readjust that. Is that a management concern? Well, where's it fallen down?
I mean, it is a huge management concern, that particular report, and we've made a report to the senior management, i.e. the directors and the chief executive about it. I mean, in summary, our policy wasn't followed. We didn't follow the policy to do the cut of it. So, and we've apologised, and we're back on track with an action plan for the tenant. But that is the basically the core of it. We just did not follow the policy, or we did not, and as I say, actions that came out of the policy we didn't follow through. So it's about the follow through.
I've been on 1 or 2 meetings where David Woodward has reassured us on ASB stuff in partnership. So are we now in a better place than we were?
David Hollingsworth, yes, so he's been involved, and I'm talking because he's not within. We contribute to his salary, but he's not within housing. So I've been talking to the assistant director of communities about a role that he can play to help audit and give us some oversight in how we deal with ASB cases, especially the complex ones. So we're going forward to use him a lot more.
So now we're going to have a more joined up thought with other departments within the borough to actually make sure that we don't fall into this again.
That's correct.
Thank you.
If there's no more questions, and to be a proper chairman for once, may I ask the meeting to note Sharon's excellent report? Thank you all very much. Okay. And lastly, our forward plan. Hugh, just some words on it.
Sorry. There is the one in the pack, and we are looking to perhaps add other items to it. So, Chair, we probably would need to meet with you to actually agree the agenda, so it's not over. There's not too much on the agenda. I don't know if anyone has got any particular priority within the items that are suggested for March. But I think it's going to be quite a challenge the next meeting in terms of managing the agenda. So if anyone's got any sort of things that must be on the agenda, if they could let us know now, or let me or Sharon know what you think is really important to come. But and then also what we're planning to do is because we're looking to bring the service improvement plan to the next meeting. And from that, we will then populate the forward plan for the rest of the year. So you'd have a whole plan for the year, which would hopefully help you plan, but also us plan, and it allows ONS also to be aware what we'll be discussing over the year.
Any comments, any questions? Just drop me a line over the next days and weeks if you have anything on this. But there's always a danger in having long agendas. So I think we need to cut our cloth. Jackie?
Yes, when you asked Hugh if we've got anything, I mean, we've talked about antisocial behaviour, we've talked about damp and mould and tenant engagement. And I just wondered if any of the tenants panel have any ideas that they would like to see come up. Is that
I would expect that, and they do, certainly through Terry. It's just hard to keep it down to one page. I joke, of course, right? But yes, I'm sure our excellent tenants and the tenants panel have got that. Yes, I mean, Terry drives them hard for that sort of thing. Am I right? Yes. Yeah, I see a little nod. Yeah, excellent. So, John?
I don't know whether it should be for us or what. I'm just wondering about this criticism we had about engaging the non-engaged tenants. Is that something that we should be looking at on this? Is that a forward plan that we would be involved in, or?
So, so in terms of the plan of work with non-engaged tenants, that will form part of our new tenant engagement strategy. What I can say is that we had a recruitment event where we did ask tenants what were the barriers to engagement. So what we've started, and we've had a further focus group with some of our younger tenants as well. So what we've started to do is talk to tenants about what are the barriers, why are they unable to get involved? Is it because they don't have the time? Is it because the meetings are not in the right location, what have you? So I would expect you to bring that to you through the tenant engagement strategy.
Okay, I just wondered if we could help you in any way if it was in this.
So that'll be part of the discussion at the next meeting. Yeah.
I think it's also fair to say that that talking with residents when there isn't a problem is in a similar vein, isn't it? You know, I mean, I mean, it must be very difficult for a tenant to be asked, what would you like better that we've not already doing for you? But so it's interesting. I think it'd be interesting to understand what it is that the regulator means by tenant engagement over and above the telephone discussions that we have them about recent repairs and things like that. But good luck. Any other questions? Hugh?
So going back to your point, I think the regulator expects us to come up with the answer, to tell you the truth, and we need to. Just one other, that's not on the forward plan is, you know, we have the tenant satisfaction measures where we do the surveys of tenants. So we need to book a workshop with you I think, remember last year we had the presentation from the consultant who did the surveys. So that's what we'll be sending out an invite to people for that discussion. And they would need to be signed off by this group at a later date, but the more in-depth discussion, more useful discussion will be having it a sort of a workshop style. I thought last year's presentation was really gave us an insight. So we'll be sending something out in the next couple of weeks about having that session. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. Happy to call or bring this meeting to a close. I'm giving you an extra 6 minutes for pure enjoyment. Thank you all very much. And once again, housing teams, terrific job.
I would like only add for one moment that the next meetings is 27th of March.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a lovely day.